Good afternoon, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. What's going on, everybody? I want to talk to you guys today. See what's going on with your process. Because that's the biggest problem. If you notice in the header of the post, it says the government, or the seat of government is the process. All these people that are administrating these procedures in courts and everything, you're not getting real signatures. You're not getting real there's no real nexus to yourself for the supposed security instruments that they're creating. And that's what it's all about. They have a process where they're getting a signature, whether by duress, threats, coercion, whatever, any means necessary, to create a certificate. When it comes to like these credit collectors or debt collectors and stuff that are sending you all these letters, it's a matter of starting that process. Though the courts and everything are doing it unlawfully in different ways they apply it under that threats, duress, and coercion and everything, there is a proper way to do it. And this is a resolution that's been long held, and has been slowly and surely been instituted into all the laws. And we hear everybody talk today about the law is that of trust, and that's exactly what it is. And so when we talk about the seat of government being a process, let me explain something to you. Because, and I've done a video on this before, homemade stamps. Okay? Homemade stamps. Today we think of everything in the literal sense as being something that we can perceive definitively. You know, as in paper form. That's what we send through the mail. It's a paper form. It's definitive. Okay? When we deal with the internet, things like this, we're still transferring. And we still have a third party involved in the transfer. Except today it's not known as a post office or a postal worker or a postmaster or postmaster general or the seat of government. It's again, like I said, the process. In each one of these electronic programs on the internet, there's what's known as a securities certificate. And every time you log on to a site, timestamp. Every time you enter a keystroke, timestamp. Every time you hit that enter button and post a post, timestamp. And that timestamp is associated with the securities certificate within the program that you're involved in. So each one of these programs is now acting as a part of the process in the same capacity as the postmaster general. Think about it. And I prove this with this. Because in a definitive form, they did not cancel that stamp, though you can see the black wavy marks where it went through their machine. And again, you can see those same black wavy marks. But look there, folks. What is that? You see those little orange stripes there? Guess what? That's an electronic signature. It is in barcode and therefore a non-human readable code. However, it does have a securities certificate attached, because that electronic barcode, I can take this definitive piece of paper back to the post office. Excuse me there. I can take this piece of paper back to the post office, and I can require the electronic source. The electronic source will be that securities certificate in the post office computer system. It's part of the process. Okay, so let's talk about that process. What is that process? That process, as I just said a minute ago, was everybody believes today the law is the law of trust, and therefore there's three parties involved. And that process involves those three parties. So even if you're doing an electronic transmission, say you get one of these these debt collectors trying to get a hold of you through electronic securities and sending you emails, you can use those timestamps against them as well. Same thing as a postal service. You still use Title 15 or Title 18 of the United States Code, Title 15 of the United States Code, Section 1692E. False misrepresentations. This here was not a false misrepresentation because they did allow it through as private. They did not cancel it. They allowed it to remain a private franking, a private stamp, a private symbol, a private mark, and did not wish to contract. Contract. Con, with. And most people think of tract as a tract of land, a space. It's not. It's a span of time. And it's been time-stamped. That's the securities certificate in today's electronic world. Okay? Before the electronic age came up, and they used those stamps, a regular U.S. postage stamp, all you had to do was take it back and show that they had canceled it and ran it through their system. And they wouldn't be able to tell when it went through their system, but they would assure through that black canceling that, yes, it went through our system. That was the only way they had to verify it. Today, with so many transactions going on, they're enumerating them through timestamps. And that timestamp is just an attachment to the actual certificate, the actual securities instrument. So let's get back to that process and the fact that it's a trust in three parties. In these written communications, when you get something through the mail from a debt collector, that's not them trying to collect a debt. You have to think about it in the proper aspect. That's them using a third party by beginning an administrative process in fault, with fault, with fault. Comprehend that, with fault. They're not doing this because they're standing in honor. They're doing this knowing what they're doing. Forgive them not, for they do know what they do. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. So let's get it right, people. When they send you a debt collection, they are beginning an administrative procedure. They are not enforcing one that has already been canceled. They are beginning a new administrative procedure, and they are doing it with all fault. So your response isn't that they are claiming a debt against you, is that they are giving you evidence of your right to make a commercial lien against their false claim. Up with. The only ones that can make any kind of possible commercial lien against a man would be another man. Any commercial lien they propose is against another person, which is a corporate fictional entity. And even by doing so through the mail, they have misrepresented that yourself is the one that owes. They have also misrepresented that you have to pay in a certain species. They have also misrepresented the fact that you can't even pay. Any instrument that you try to forward to them through the United States system, be it the Postal Service or whatever, is using a third person, and therefore it is a public process. This is why I strongly urge that if you're going to do this, you know what you're doing, and accept that administrative public process and make it public. So when they send you a letter and you take acceptance of that letter and you write them a request for validation of certain points and elements or rebuttals thereof, and they acquiesce, and you're giving them the initial 21, you turn around and get a second response in their file that they obtained from the original creditor, but have not yet obtained the file from the original creditor, because the original creditor knows he ain't going to give it up. He's no longer involved. Why would he give up all of those files? So now we have to name the original creditor in it and say, this guy is making claim that you are involved in this transaction because you are a creditor to this event. They've named themselves as an attorney. They've named them a Portfolio Recoveries, LLC, whatever, as the creditor, as the buyer of the original creditor. So now we've got three different entities involved, all with all fault for their part in the process, and it's all just stupidity. Because when it gets said and done, and I have the original one from the first ones, and I've got these attorneys responding, they want the attorney. I'm not going to respond to the attorney. Remember, this is a new administrative process. So now when I respond to this attorney, he's started his new administrative process because he's backing up what this idiot is already saying, which I've already got a commitment that he's at fault, validated with through a third party known as the U.S. Postmaster. All they're doing is handing you evidence, people. That's all they're doing is handing you evidence. So we with their their first initial steps in their administrative process. Now the one guy, the original creditor, sold the debt. Now we have these people sending us a collection statement or a collection thing. Yeah, a statement. It's their statement stating they're trying to collect a debt. We respond, and instead of them responding with validation point by point of what they need to respond to, they send us through an attorney. So now that's not proper response, so I've got to send back to them that they haven't responded appropriately. In the meantime, I got to take this as separate because now this guy has stepped up and saying he's claiming liability. Am I supposed to let these guys off the hook for their liability? No, they're the ones that administrated the process or initiated this administrative process to begin with. Just because these guys want to be a third-party intervener doesn't mean it's part of the same process. They're different signatures on different documents. And yet, you'll notice it wasn't canceled Wasn't canceled. Wasn't canceled, but look there. It's got a timestamp where it went through. I don't see a timestamp or nothing on this. It just says postage paid. They're using an artifice of the U.S. mail. See, that says postage paid? U.S. Postmaster's already been considered. He's already part of it. So once you send them the initial notice, after they've started the administrative process and you respond, they're making an offer. They're making an offer, and you have to accept it in formation of contract. Offer and acceptance in formation of contract. Unless otherwise unambiguously indicated by the language or circumstances, an offer to make contract shall be construed as inviting acceptance in any manner and by any medium reasonable in the circumstances. An offer to make a contract. That's what they're doing. And I've got several of them that I've sent back because they explicitly stated 3 times, this is an offer. Thereby they are a contract, and it shall be construed as inviting acceptance in any manner and by any medium reasonable in the. Well, it's that if I have doubt that these guys actually are any kind of creditor to me, I've never signed any contract with them, so how can they possibly be getting credit from me? Through that first original creditor who sold the debt, meaning that the debt was already fulfilled. So once these guys make an offer to contract and you send them a list of things that they have to validate, and they come back with this, you now have to go back and give them their 21-day grace. And once that 21 days is up, you send them a second notice, because this is not a response by them. You don't go to a third party and have them respond and say, here, send these guys a bunch of files for me, would you? It's got to be signed by you. Okay? If the court wants me to respond to them, I can't have my brother go in and, hey, go take care of this for me. Court ain't going to accept it, is they? Ain't the way it works. So you have to stick with the administration. And that's what the law is. Trust law is the administrative procedure. Administrative procedure is trust law. It's the same. The difference is what aspect you come in it from. If you come in of administrating the law in the sense of the common law for a crime, for an actual crime, and you bring in the public peoples to do a jury, what's going to compensate them? This is where we have this value and consideration system of commerce, where we have to be able to compensate these guys all fairly and all equally. So instead of giving this guy through the common law 2 loaves of bread because he sat in jury trial for a day, and that's what he wanted in exchange, and this guy wanted a gallon of milk, instead of having, we provide a common unit, a medium of exchange, and therefore we have to use the effect of the courts in that to now take things from a matter of a will and testament of somebody that's committed a crime and put it into a probate court where they can administrate that estate for the purposes of the trial and everything, so that if found guilty, they can pay the public venue. Guilty, then the estate is held intact. This is the attack the creditors or these debt collectors are making upon your estate. So we have to realize that. So once they've acquiesced to that 21 days, you send them a second notice. This is your notice of fault and opportunity to cure. See, that default is take away fault. Fault is a root word. Why would we put them in default? We want them to know that they are at fault. They are in fault. They are with all fault. Okay? So we have to really learn to construct our notices a little bit better and get away from their terms and conditions that they place on the root words and learn how to use the root words appropriately according to the concise English construct. So we put them at notice of fault and opportunity to remedy. Opportunity to remedy. They have the ability to remedy this by just shutting the fuck up and clearing their claim. This is coming to them in private. Matthew 18 verses 15 through 18. Go to your brother in private. If he refuses, then you take it to a public venue. Okay? So now the second notice we're going to send, and these notices are all for my companion. So I'm a third person intervener that's not actually intervening. I'm actually involved as a participant because that's my companion. And guess what? It's my woman. Guess what? I am man. And guess what? I rule her. And guess what? She rules me. And so when things come into our household, we rule together. It is we, us, and our. So then I correspond with them, now giving them 10 days to again respond to the validations in an appropriate manner. Now, when they tacitly acquiesce again, and that 10 days is up, I send them a final notice of all fault and opportunity to cure. With remedy and relief. For final judgment absolute. Now again, I'm going to give them 3 days, and when they don't respond, that's my judgment. That's a security instrument. That's a security instrument, and this guy right here will prove it. Notice, I don't throw these envelopes away. They keep the contents in them. And they all go in a file. That's the administrative file of the office of the executor of this temple. Now, once you get done with that, if you've got your account all set up and everything, by technicality, if you've got it set up right, and you do it appropriately with the dollar amounts, you know, when you send them this thing for validation, you're gonna be sending them the fee schedule and stuff, letting them know that it's costing them. It's going to cost them. They've started an administrative process, and in order for you to perform administratively, you've got fees too. So now when the judgment comes, you tally up the bill, and that attaches to the judgment as the final bill. You send them notice of their bill, and when they tacitly refuse to pay the bill, you can now send it to the broker. So if you've got your TDA linked up appropriately with your local account, you just take it to your banker. Here you go. I need this deposited in my account. It's a security instrument finalized. If you have any questions, talk to the TDA. It's under their regulations. And guess what? That guy's your witness. See, that's why they're switching everything over to electronics. They're no longer taking definitive bonds. So you have to convert them. The only way you can convert them is through the TDA. That's how you get your judgments, people, is following the administrative process. You are the government, and the government is process, period. Plain and simple. You want to prove this country has a government? You want to prove this country is great again? Then fucking stand up and learn it. It's simple. That certificate of live birth? Call up the state. Order a certificate of live birth. Have it authenticated. Attach it to it. Bill them for the charges that you had to pay in the Federal Reserve notes to procure it all. You had to pay the 54 cents postage to write to them, to have them send it to you. You had to include a $20 payment to get the certificate of live birth. You had to send it off to them again, pay the postage on that. And if you want to do registered mail, go ahead. But folks, it's already registered. It's already certified. It's already got a security certificate if you keep track. If it doesn't come with one of those, then make record. Make it a security certificate or attach it to one. The proper one. Just don't go attaching it to anyone. That's why you got to keep your files correct. So think about this, people. It's you guys that got to stand up and learn this stuff. Start keeping accounts. Keeping track. That's what journaling is all about. You write your own journal. On this day, I was approached by Officer Kendick. He asked me for my name. No, he asked me for identification. I already know the answer to that one. I don't have to put it down, but I will just for sake of journaling. So in case somebody else reads this, I told him distinctly, I don't have one. He then asked for my name. I then distinctly told him, I don't have one of them either. He looked at me with a weird look. A glazed look in his eye. Like he is full of all kinds of cognitive dissonance. Well, what do you mean? Everybody's got a name. I had to distinctly tell him, no. Nobody's have names. This body is a man, and he has a calling. And he has been called Keith all his life. Now, when Mom and Dad got mad at me, they might call me Keith Orland. And if the teacher got mad at me, they might call me Keith Orland Little. And I do hail from the family Little. And I am sometimes also called Orland. Never by itself, always with Keith. Acceptance, offer and acceptance in formation of contract. So what is it, people? Where's your fault at? What's everybody doing? Talk to me, people. All I got is everybody's watching. Nobody's commenting. Darlene says, Keith, I thought we had to use a 2-cent stamp. No. Let me go over this real quick for folks. Got it right here. Almost forgot where I put it. Okay. This is private. They recognize this as a private stamp. They are a public entity. They cannot contract with the public or with the private entity. So they can't cancel this. Just like they couldn't cancel the one on the back. All they could do was put them tiny little those little barcodes on it. Private. When you're dealing with them as a public entity and you want to contract with them for verification, the envelope itself, empty of its contents, means nothing. But I do have the contents that were situated in it. That's why I still have the envelope. It goes with the actual document. This is the security instrument. This is just like a promissory note. A promissory note, when you go to the loan, you have all this documentation, you're filling out all the information. At the bottom, there's supposed to be a promissory note area that you sign. That's the promissory note. It's supposed to remain attached to the document. What they do is they sell that portion. And now it is no longer a contract, because there's no security certificate attached. The contract is finalized. The debt is paid. People don't comprehend this. So if you want to contract with them in public, you can send that private document inside and then attach a security instrument in the form of an envelope. That is a 2-cent stamp that the sender placed on it himself. Then he signed it and canceled it in gold. He was the first one to cancel it. It's already a canceled stamp. It's already a canceled stamp. It has already been defaced, as they call it. Obligation or other securities of the United States. United States stamps. United States stamps and other representatives of value of whatever denomination. Of whatever denomination. Those are two different denominations. That's a third denomination. Of whatever denomination. Issued under any act of Congress and canceled United States stamps. And canceled United States stamps. Doesn't say who has to cancel it. Doesn't say how many times it gets canceled. Doesn't say who cancels it first. It also doesn't say that it's a contract. He canceled it, giving a signature. They canceled it, giving it a signature, a mark, a symbol with a date. Gee, that sounds like a contract to me. The 2 cent is qualification of domestic within the United States. You use a 3 cent stamp to send it outside of the United States. That's the difference. If you're going to contract with them and send private documents in their envelope, you use a stamp. If you're using something definitive that is nothing of their creation, it is your own definitive form, then you use a franking privilege, also known as a stamp. And you don't give it a denomination of $1, you give it a denomination of a whole. To be made whole, and not a partial, as in 2 centum, 2 percentum. Very low nominal value. That one has the highest value of all of them. They have to go by their words, and when you realize the simplicity of the words and how the simplicity of the construction is, that's why I say if you're going to use an envelope, use a stamp. If you want to use your own homemade stamps, you got to construct them in a certain way. You got to construct them as a document, private document. Do not use this process on an envelope. Ain't going to work. You can use that on an envelope and use your own frank to seal the envelope. And that means nobody else better open this unless they know what they're doing. That would be the receiver. And there you have it, folks. That's the difference between your stamps, your canceled stamps, and any other denomination. And it says under any act of Congress, but under any act of Congress, they admit that it can be in any denomination. And therefore, it's uniform throughout all jurisdictions that I can use my own denomination. Get it? Denomination, as in nom de guerre. Away from their name and my name. My armorial bearing. How's that for a name? You want to ask me my name next time? Here, let me show you my name. Like Prince did. The artist formerly known as Prince. The creator, formerly known as Tito the Little. Suckers. How simple it is, guys. Learn it. Educate yourselves. Administrative process. 21 days. Give them validation points, your fee schedule, a couple other elements, and we're going to be exposing all this along the way. Ask all the questions you want. I'm willing to answer them. In the meantime, I think I'm done with this for today. I've got my Zoom meeting coming up here at 7 p.m. So I got to get on that so I can get that posted and get you guys ready for some more excitement. We're going to be talking about presumptions of law. Last Thursday, I wasn't able to do a Monday night meeting because the internet went out locally. But last Thursday, we discussed presumptions of law and the biblical presumptions or biblical rebuttals to them. And we did the first 4 presumptions. Tonight, we're going to work on the next 4 presumptions. So come see me then. And in the meantime, when I get done here, I'm going to post the links to my other forums along with my PayPal link. For anybody that wishes to forward me some love, help me help you, send me some love. I really appreciate it. I do really need it. And remember, if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be doing this. So God bless. Love you. Have a great day, and we'll see you later. Bye.